Was it a case of Dillian being so bad?
Kid is the next superstar.
And the fact that the kid just went out there and just done a number on him and looked sensational doing it. 10 out of 10.
He is special.
Dillian Whyte didn't know where those shots were coming from because they were just coming from all angles, Simon.
Dillian seemed to be detached mentally from the job that was in hand, in name, but not in spirit, in my view.
Yeah, a good servant to the sport of boxing. Unfortunately, always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
Yeah, I don't know how Hergovich stood up to that barrage that he took. But I mean, David hit him with everything. And I'm thinking to myself, if you'd have done this earlier in the fight,
If you watch that and you're happy with that, then that's not right. You need to be disappointed with that. Get in the gym, right the wrongs, put it better in your next fight. I think Alexander Usyk will just want to switch off from, I don't want an opponent lined up yet, just let me have a rest, let me enjoy what I've done.
I think it's more about deciding whether he wants to continue in a boxing ring. But I don't think changing this whole team is going to be particularly good for Daniel Dubois.
It's not the coach's fault why the fighters lost.
Sure.
It's the fighter's fault why the fight was lost.
I think it's beyond saving with him. I think whenever the fight gets hard, he doesn't seem to have that fortitude, that grit, that desire.
Welcome to episode 134 of Talk Boxing with Simon Jordan and Spencer Oliver. We have an embarrassment of riches today of information, and Spencer, of course. We have the three-weight world champion, Duke McKenzie, and someone that should have been the super middleweight champion of the world, Paul Smith. Boys, nice to join you. Thanks for coming in. Let's kick straight off with Moses Itauma and the fight against Dillian Whyte on the weekend. How impressive does everyone think Moses was?
Yeah, I thought he was superb. But look, in Moses' situation right now, he coming off the back of that, and you read the comments, etc., about but we need to see him in with someone different. We need to see a live opponent. We need more rounds and all that sort of stuff. You go, you're deemed if you don't, and you're deemed if you do. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like it's one of those things that you just go, look, give the kid some respect. He went in there against Dillian Whyte. Yeah, all right, Dillian may have looked a shell of his former self once that bell rang, but he still had to do the job. What he went in there with, Simon, was the tick that he got was he dealt with the emotions that he had to deal with. He come through that with flying colours.
And all the other stuff going around.
And all the other stuff going around that, with being
expectation, headlining and all that sort of stuff,
etc. And I thought it was a great performance, a first-class performance.
I thought he was pretty exceptional. As Spencer's already said, there's a lot of emotion going around on fight day, and you can only go out and do the job that you've got to do. And he went out and executed it to perfection. I think the fact that Dillian Whyte was probably, obviously shot, went over the hill. You don't know you didn't know what he was going to bring until the bell went, and the fact that the kid just went out there and just done a number on him and looked sensational doing it. 10 out of 10.
Paul?
I thought a very good win. If he goes the distance and has a good, long, hard fight with him, then it's still a great win to beat someone like Dillian because he's so tough, so durable. But he made it look easy, and that's tough to do against someone like Dillian Whyte, especially how he fights and on his day as well, as we say. But I'm really impressed with Itauma.
Yeah. I'm going to pick the bones out of Dillian in a minute, but what I want to do is, before we do that, I want to listen to Moses Itauma, who spoke to talkSPORT straight after the victory.
Did you feel any nerves coming in here tonight? No. The reason why I say that is because I've been in training for maybe 12 to 14 weeks, and I've ticked every box. So if it wasn't my night to win today, it wasn't going to be my night. But I knew that I'd done everything I could to make this night my night. It only took you 1 minute 59 seconds, but you were still careful, precise, brutal, and you finished it completely.
Thank you very much, Gareth.
But you were still patient, weren't you?
I mean, that was one of the things where the team wanted me to get a couple rounds out, so I was like, maybe I should slow it down a little bit, but I saw he was hurt, and we went for it.
You've been going at these guys. You texted Dillian when you were 14 and asked him to go sparring with you. You seem ready. People are saying you're hyping this guy too much. You seem ready for all of them. Are you ready for all of them?
What do you reckon, Gareth?
I think you're ready.
Now, I'm going to open myself up to observations of never having laced up gloves and never having the right to say some of these things. But I'll frame that question in this framing of it now, before I get into my view on it, was this really a case of Moses being so good, or was it a case of Dillian being so bad?
The hype is real. Moses is that good. That is the facts. If you look at the history of this kid, going back to when, as Gareth was saying there, when he was 15 years of age, you hear the stories circulating around the gyms. You know the stories are real. You know, and he's given a lot of good fighters a lot of problems at a very young age. And he's delivering as a pro. You look at the setup of that, you know, southpaw for one, he's very spiteful, very calculated, very precise. He mixes it up. He's very hard to read. The kid is the next superstar. That is it. And I think he underlined that with the win over Dillian. Forget what rumours were circulating about Dillian Whyte, you know, before the fight. The facts are the facts. He went in there, he fought him, and he had to do the job, and he done it.
But the rumours that were circulating about Dillian were... and I'll paraphrase what you said the other day, a lack of engagement, a lack of interest, seemed to be disinterested. And I'm desperately keen to want to give Moses Itauma all of the plaudits that he should be given because he's going in there and doing the job that's asked of him. But I'm finding it difficult to move past what Dillian brought into this fight because the Dillian Whyte that would have fought him 4 or 5 years ago, the Dillian Whyte before he was humbled against Tyson Fury, is not the Dillian Whyte that's gone into that ring on Saturday night. So I'm trying to not lose my mind over being disproportionately harsh on my judgment of what Moses Itauma did because he did what was asked of him. Yeah. All he can do is go and knock someone over, and that's what he did. He did it in 2 minutes. But this idea that we're building him up into a superstar, has he fought a live one yet? Have we seen him with a live one?
Well, the wind hasn't changed yet. You know, nobody's hitting back yet, and you can only beat what's put in front of you, Simon. And if you're going out and you're blowing everybody out in 1 or 2 rounds, then all well and good. But at some point in time, the wind will change and he will get hit back. And then the questions will be asked. How well can he take a shot? Now, a lot's been made of that recently, you know, because nobody's put it on him.
Yep.
You know, so we don't know if he can hold his shot. We don't know if he's got good stamina. All these questions have never been answered because he's blown everybody away. Dillian Whyte was never going to give us those answers at no point. At no point.
I mean, but he is being billed, Paul, as someone that was going to give us those answers because everyone looks at Dillian in a certain way and the fights that he's been in and the battles that he's been through and the fighters that he's fought. But I watched Dillian. We listened to him all week. Duke was on last week with me. He said, I think he's a bit disinterested. I thought he was a bit lacking intensity, pushing back against punditry, you know, in a way that everyone was saying, well, I think you're going to get done here, Dillian. And he was like, wait and see, all you experts, you know. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, everybody did. Because Dillian walked into that fight from the moment he appeared on the screens, and I know there's a lot of us that are now analysing ring walks left, right and centre. When Anthony Joshua walked in against Daniel Dubois, it was a certain mindset. When Daniel Dubois walked in against Alexander Usyk, it was a certain mindset. But if ever there was a mindset that seemed to be visible, was Dillian seemed to be detached mentally from the job that was in hand. And so with that in situ, can you be judging of Moses' excellence when you look at Dillian Whyte and go, great name on the resume?
Yeah.
But it was Dillian Whyte in name, but not in spirit, in my view.
Yeah, you can look at it that way. I'll play the other side of the fence and explain in the fact that I think maybe he was been there, seen it, done it, got the T-shirt. This is a young kid. No one's expecting me to win, so there's a lot of pressure off me. I can now go in. I didn't hear any stories from the gym. They may be there. They may have been an injury. I don't know. But also look at it this way. Dillian came out, he was stalking, he was chasing the fight, he was pressing, and then he got caught with a big shot right in the back of his head. Not a foul because he dipped into it.
Disorientated him.
And they take everything away from you. And from then on, it was curtains. So no matter what happened in the rest of the fight, we wasn't even going to get to see the later rounds. Had Dillian have got through the first round, second round without that shot, we may have seen some form of offence from him. We may have seen some form of pressure and maybe land a couple of shots, but I do think Itauma's really that good. I personally think he's special. I think the way he punches, how he punches, he's very relaxed, very lean. He whips the shots in really nice. He's knocking everyone out and has been doing it since he was a 14-year-old kid. I think he's special, and I think maybe not so much Dillian Whyte being bad. He is special.
I agree with that, and for him to deliver the way that he delivered, that's why it's such an impressive performance, because he stepped up into another level.
But is it again? I'm not trying to be a clever. I'm not trying to be divisive and controversial just for the sake of it, because I make the point, and it may be because I have a lack of knowledge, and you guys can fill the gap. I watched Dillian walk in there, and the moment I watched him walk into that all the time, I think he's not mentally in this space.
I thought he looked a little bit nervous myself on the night. I said, I was sitting on the couch watching it. I think he looks a little bit nervous.
And since 2022, I remember watching Dillian walk into the press conference with Tyson Fury, and I was a major campaigner, in terms of voice about how much Dillian should get paid for this fight, how he was getting missed out on all the mandatories, and when he walked into the fight with Fury, he was like a mouse. Didn't say anything in the press conference, and he was beaten before he got in the ring, and he put up a performance that, Fury ran him ragged, didn't he? In this fight, I watched him come in and I'm thinking, am I going to see a howling wolf? Am I going to see the kind of intensity that tells me that mentally Physically, I think he's here, but mentally, I don't think he is. And so when I watch him and I walk in, and I wasn't surprised he got knocked out in the first round.
At 38 years of age, also, Simon, you know, like I say, when you've been to the gym and you start training, your body just shuts down. You can't produce any of the goods. You try to do your runs, it don't work. Everything aches, everything falls apart. And like I say, he seemed totally disinterested.
You were talking the other day, Duke, about you felt what would happen. As you said, disinterested, and then we talked about what was likely to happen in a fight. And I was hoping that Moses would come out looking impressive, Dillian would get a few whacks, and in the fourth round he'd be staring across the ring at Moses Itauma saying, "You're in a fight,
You're
son."
in a fight,
right?
exactly.
And you felt that what would happen is that Dillian Whyte would run out of heart or run out of desire as it got more difficult around about 7, 8, and 9. So are you really surprised? Or is, again, I'm picking at it. It feels like I'm picking at a scab, but there's a hype train around Moses. He doesn't need any help from me.
No.
It's already there,
Yeah.
right? Everyone's going to be telling him how wonderful he is, and I'm not suggesting that he isn't, because on current evidence he is. But are you surprised with Dillian that he got himself in a position where he could get knocked out in the first round? Or is it just simply, pack it in, Simon, this kid is that good that it doesn't matter what that Dillian Whyte brought into that ring?
Probably a little bit of both. You know, Moses Itauma, I'm sure they sparred together, Dillian Whyte and Moses Itauma. You know, in the previous sort of life, if you will, they probably sparred together. And if Moses was handling him in sparring several years prior to this, that's where he's got a lot of his confidence from going into this fight. He's a lot more experienced now in terms of when they first sparred to when he's had 12 fights now, and now they're fighting for real. Do you see what I mean? So then he's gone in there with all the confidence in the world, knowing he could handle this older man, and he just did a number on him.
Yeah.
I thought Dillian would take him a few rounds so we could get these answers to the questions.
I think that shot, though, that scrambles all you said.
It did.
It's where it lands. And
Dillian went
that's
for
a
it.
bit of a canceller, isn't it?
Yeah.
It puts stops to any plans you've got. If you get caught with a shot that high on the head, you could see the reaction from Whyte as soon as he was caught straight away. It wasn't going to go past that first round.
How technically good was the knockout? When I was talking to Adam Catterall earlier on, he was talking about the technical ability, because a lot of people are not talking about the technical ability of Moses Itauma. He said that, you know, his feet were in the right position. He says that ultimately he goes in, there's never any risk for Moses Itauma to get one back, right? But the execution of the outcome was as good as it gets. Yeah. Are you in that space?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And when you have someone hurt, that's not a 47 pro fight, and I used to, as soon as I have you hurt, I'm jumping all over you. But you leave yourself open. If you can be patient and work your way in, still have the confidence and the patience. But when you punch like Itauma, you're going to have that confidence. You're going to have that patience, and he knows he has to stay patient to do so.
Yeah, it's the speed that he puts these combinations together, the hand speed, the foot movement as well, and he's working him up and down. You know, Dillian Whyte didn't know where those shots were coming from, because they were just coming from all angles, Simon.
It's foot control. He's controlling that space the whole time. He keeps that distance, and you know, he's got that edging speed anyway, and he's setting that lead right hand. Look at the way he's pulling that up and down all the time. He's putting his opponent off. Dillian doesn't know where them shots are coming from, and the execution was perfect. The setup was perfect. That straight left hand to the body hurt Dillian Whyte before he done that. He literally held his head with his left hand and whipped him over with that left hook. Like, his boxing IQ is exceptional, and I think that we have to accept that. Yeah, all right. A lot of talk is about Dillian Whyte and what actually he had left. Going into that ring at that time, no one really knew that. And that young kid didn't know that either, Moses Itauma. You're looking at that, you go, that's why you go, that was such a great performance.
I was expecting a good fight, and I think we have to not slate Dillian Whyte too much and praise Itauma, because I think that was
because I was expecting a good fight, and I was sat there disappointed because I wanted to see Moses be asked questions, because somewhere along the line he's going to get asked questions. And at this moment in time, I'm not sure that we're learning that much, because I look at Marius Wack. When he fights Marius Wack, who was a punch bag at that stage in his career. Dempsey McKean got all his chops from fighting Filip Hrgovic. And Mike Balogun was an NFL footballer that's found his way into boxing that got knocked out by Moses Itauma. And I'm trying to be pragmatic in my thinking without being a miserable, but I still feel that the expectation, that the main benefit for Moses Itauma in that fight is Dillian Whyte is a good name to have on your resume, but that was the former fighter, Dillian Whyte. That's not the Dillian Whyte that we were anticipating or hoping might turn up in that fight.
But Moses didn't know that coming into the ring. That's why I say that was an exceptional performance because Dillian...
But he's saying how confident he is. You're saying about the nerves and the expectation. Duke is saying, turn around and saying, he was already sparred with him. He already knows that what Dillian Whyte has and hasn't got. There wouldn't have been the fear factor there.
He was a 15-year-old kid. That was a long time ago. And what I'm saying is, like, Dillian's had a great career. You're going into that ring, you go, this is a step up, a significant step up in levels here. And it's the execution of taking him out in 2 minutes. You go, doesn't matter how much Dillian Whyte's deteriorated. To get rid of him in 2 minutes,
it's a statement,
in under 2 minutes, is a statement.
Do you attribute? I mean, Andy Lee was talking about injury to Dillian Whyte. Paul was talking about no information coming out of the camp. Is there anything in this that Dillian Whyte was potentially on the cusp of not going into this fight? Injury was part of it?
Everyone was talking about this broken foot or his supposed injury to his foot that he had. When he went into that corner before the bell rang, he jumped up and down on the spot, and about 10 times. Straight away told me, look, rumours circulate. There was also rumours circulating that Moses had a bad back. People, they start these rumours. The facts are the facts. Don't want no excuses. They went in there and he delivered, and that was what it was. Like, I'm not interested in after the event, he was injured, this and that. He had to deal, they went in there, the bell rang.
Don't get me wrong, I'm very excited by Moses Itauma. I think he will be precisely what everyone thinks he's going to be. I just want to examine narratives because people get carried away with things and make assertions and judgments, and we get carried out. You wanted to tell me that Mike Tyson versus Jake Paul was a real wasn't.
Why are you rebirthing that?
Because I like that argument, because it does you no credit whatsoever. How do we look at Dillian Whyte's career? How will we remember Dillian Whyte? Because I think we are now... I think Dillian doesn't need to be in a ring again after that performance. I don't think there's any point. I think he's made a decent amount of money out of boxing. He's got a decent reputation. But when we look at Dillian Whyte as a heavyweight contender and as a British heavyweight over the last 10, 12 years, how do we look back on him?
We had his debut in 2011, so it's like 14 years. He's given us some good entertainment. He's been involved in some big fights. And, I look at that and I go, he's one of the characters of this modern era. You can't take that away, from Dillian Whyte. I think that, he's given us some good nights.
He's been someone you respect constantly from not ducking a fight. He's been in with the best. He's been in with them all. And he's always fought with his heart on his sleeve and always left it in the ring, in my opinion. The last fight, obviously, that was an early finish where he's been caught, been hit and been took out of there, obviously. And that's obviously not how he will want to bow to the game, but I feel that's probably the last of it for him now. Yeah,
a good servant to the sport of boxing. Unfortunately, always the bridesmaid, never the bride.
Yeah.
The big fights have always eluded him.
And when he got them, I mean, he fought Tyson Fury at Tyson Fury's best moments, didn't he? And ultimately, he didn't get the outcome that he wanted. He's a character. When we look at characters, are we losing too many at this moment in time? And do we think Moses, very young, I mean, I was looking at this pursuit of Moses to become the youngest heavyweight champion in the world. That's now evaded him. And comparison with Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson had 28 fights before he fought Trevor Berbick. This kid's had 12, 13 fights now. When you look at Moses' outlook and behaviour during the course of this week, and we're talking about Dillian Whyte being a character, we're talking about Tyson Fury being a character, we're talking about AJ being a character, and potentially these guys we're losing them. Do we see Moses as being someone that will have the kind of character that will make you talk about him as much out of the ring as you do in the ring?
Yeah, I think that this was the launch pad for Moses. I think this takes him to another level again. There'll be more self-belief there than there ever was before because he's beat a name like Dillian Whyte. Forget all the background noise surrounding it all.
Is that true?
I think
is that
he's
true,
20
guys?
years of age.
Will he not know? Well, you're saying he's got all the confidence now because he's beaten Dillian Whyte. Will he not know in himself that maybe that wasn't the best version of Dillian Whyte? Or is it just a case of it doesn't really matter? You get your momentum, you get your momentum.
If we're talking about personalities, his personality isn't that of a Tyson Fury or a Dillian Whyte. Yeah, he's not about to be coming to the ring in a Batman suit or anything like that, or be singing, singing a song or whatever it is. He's quite. He's got an old head on young shoulders. That kid.
What I'm seeing with him, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way. I mean it as a compliment. He's got arrogance. He's got that arrogance. And when he was speaking to Garrett, then he go, "What do you think, Garrett?" I think he knows he's going to be the best. I think he's got that supreme confidence / arrogance which all the top champions need and all the greats have. And he's got that arrogance about him already in a complimentary way. I mean that. As in, he knows he's going to walk through after division.
Belief.
And he's got that big, deep-rooted belief in himself, which is borderline arrogance, which you need as a top pro fighter,
Listen, heavyweight boxing, 8 of his 13 fights have been inside the first round. People like to see that. That arrogance is in his performance. And I think that
it's a good thing.
That's it. What do you think, Simon? Do you think that he's got the potential, that star quality? Forget what he does.
I don't know if he has yet, because I don't see that flamboyance in him. I mean, the most flamboyant fighter we've had recently has been Tyson Fury. Chris Eubank is quite flamboyant in his own way because he holds people to task. I don't think he's one of those, but I'm not entirely sure how flamboyant Mike Tyson was. What was flamboyant about Mike Tyson was the absolute terror that he struck into his opponents and the way he cut a swathe through the industry. So I think he has the potential to do that. How that translates into making him a superstar, I don't think that really.
I think there's other roots to that as well. Frank Bruno wasn't a bad person or arrogant. He was loved and adored, and still is to this day. The stars that we had coming through in the 80s, Ben and Eubank and the great fighters like that, they were not all the same, but they were loved by the fans and or loved to be hated. And I think that's the route. There's still either way to get there, but I think he can come across, if he comes across as a nice, likeable boy next door, lad next door, the heavyweight next door, then maybe he can come across that way.
And if he's still knocking out guys like, you know, all the other heavyweights that are coming through, if he's still knocking these guys out in 1 or 2 rounds, then obviously his boxing speaks for itself.
Absolutely right.
Do you see what I mean? Absolutely doesn't have to be flamboyant, does it?
Absolutely right. There was another heavyweight fight on Saturday night. David Adelaide, a heavy underdog, but there was an expectation that David might be able to do something in this fight. I mean, Hrgović is Hrgović, and we've seen him against Zhilei Zhang. We saw him against Joe Joyce recently. What did you make of this fight? What was your takeaway from the fight?
Spence, go on, mate.
Yeah, no, I thought he showed a lot of character, David Adelaide. I thought he showed a lot of character to hang in there, but it was about levels. You could see that Adelaide wasn't ready for that level yet. I mean, the cut in round 2 was a horrendous cut, actually. And that's when Adelaide should have gone for it. He should have rolled the dice a little bit. And I think the instructions in the corner we were listening from Adam Booth were saying, just hold yourself now, just hold yourself. Like, I wouldn't have said that.
But Adam was also saying things like, you're letting him have his own way.
Yeah.
You're letting him have his own way.
Yeah, he needed to be more ruthless in his attacks. Like I say, the cut was from one side of the eyelid to the other, and he should have gone for it a little bit more. He was holding himself back a little bit, and he was allowing Hrgović to dominate the rounds. They were entertaining rounds, but he was dominating the rounds. And then after the knockdown in round 8, by the way, I thought he showed great character to come back, Adelaide, the way that he did. And Hrgović had to dig deep, but he turned it back around. He showed that star quality.
The knockdown frustrated me, though, Spence. He should have been he should have been on the front foot. He should have been the aggressive from the minute that cut happened. Because don't forget, the cut was caused by a punch. Yeah. So you make that cut worse, then the fight's getting stopped. You'll win. You're
I mean, Abel Sanchez did do a brilliant job with the cut.
Unbelievable job.
So almost like
as well as coaching as well, Sam. We forget that. Like it's tough to be a cutsman. It's tough to be a coach, but to do both at the same time, you've got to be next level.
Did you look at? I mean, I looked at Adelaide in the 8th round, get knocked down in the 8th round, and then come out and come back. And I'm looking at him thinking, why didn't you do this earlier in the fight? Why didn't you give Hrgović? Because I mean, I don't know how Hrgović stood up to that barrage that he took. But I mean, David hit him with everything. And I'm thinking to myself, if you'd have done this earlier in the fight, you'd have had more power, you'd have had more opportunities. But is it very simplistic to have that view? Because I didn't think David ever really imposed himself on the fight in the way that I thought he was going to.
He started off so tentatively. I couldn't really
Passively.
work it out.
Yeah.
From about the 2nd round, Adelaide was on the back foot. And once the cut had appeared, like you say, that's when he should have really just gone, you know what, I'm going to put it right on him and make sure he knows what time it is. Yeah. But he didn't do it. And it's like every round he started off on the back foot. And that then gave Hrgović the momentum, or the incentive, I should say, to go forward. Hrgović ain't nothing special.
And
I don't think he's nothing
special.
We was in a situation there with that cut, and Hrgović had been taken to the corner. The doctor had looked at it, and you go, you're only a few punches away. One good shot on that, and the fight is over. It was a strange tactic from Adelaide to sit on the back foot, cover up on the ropes, and just look for that big left hook. He should have rolled the dice a little bit early on.
Paul, if you're Adam Booth, because the one thing that Adam kept on impressing upon me was that the Jamie TK fight, which was a stinker, right, was because David wasn't, for want of a better expression, aroused enough. He wasn't focused on the job in hand because he felt that he could win this fight without having to do too much. This was a different animal. Yeah. This was a real acid test for Adam Booth to see if the potential that he sees in David Adelaide and all the belief that he has in him is going to be matched by the expectation. If you're Adam Booth, what are you taking away from that performance? Because there was another part of me that is privy to the fact that David, after the fight, seemed to be coming around after the fight, watching the main event, talking to people all around the ring, very happy with his performance, a little bit too comfortable with the fact that he's gotten beat.
I don't think this can the book can stop with Adam Bood on this. I think it's all
I'm not blaming him to Adam.
Yeah, no,
I'm saying,
no,
what can he take from it?
I heard good advice from Adam after the 6th round or the 7th round, saying, right, you're not going to win this fight on points now. You've lost too many rounds. You need to knock him out. You've got to go for it. But I think Adam will be frustrated a little bit with David that they didn't make the effort a little bit earlier on. And to me, it looked like a fighter who's probably worried about his engine to go the full distance, possibly.
Right.
Because otherwise, why aren't you putting your foot down on the gas early on? And we see it a lot in boxing. Fighters go on to pace themselves for the first 4, 5, 6 rounds and then put the foot on the gas for the last 4. But it needed to be, to make someone tire late, you need to make them work early. And I think Ergovic was always in control.
But given that Adam had talked about what he wanted to see from this fight, and ultimately to reassure him of what he was seeing in the gym was going to be translated into a fight against a fighter of this level. Do you think Adam can take away that confidence that actually there's a lot more from David Adelaide? The investment that I'm likely to put into him is worth it because he's got the potential to go where I think he could do based upon what I see in the gym.
I think he's got the potential. He just probably needs a little bit more belief in himself and a little bit more confidence to actually put your foot on the gas.
Unfortunately, but unfortunately, a lot of boxers actually look really good in the gym.
Yeah.
When it comes to the actual fight,
Adam,
they come up empty.
Adam will know that.
Yeah, but, I don't... It was a very strange David Adelaide. I couldn't work it out, Simon.
Well, I
just
think
kept expecting him to really bite down and just go and smash the other guy to pieces, but he weren't having it.
But I think Paul's right in what he said there. Like some fighters, they worry about their gas tank because he blew out against Fabio Wardley before, and you're thinking about those 12 rounds, and he's thinking, I've got the cut, I'm going to sit back and let the referee stop the fight because it looked like it was going to happen.
Time ticks
and he
away.
should have jumped up. It's called experience, and I think that he's young enough to be able to grow from that, and I think that Adam Booth's seen that in him. I thought it was a much better performance than we saw against Jamie TKV. And I don't think that the loss is the end of him at this stage. I think he can grow from that.
When you said, Simon, that he was, happy-ish after the fight, like, if he watches that back, I think he'll kick himself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean that as a constructive criticism too, in a nice way. If you watch that and you're happy with that, then that's not right. You need to be disappointed with that. Get in the gym, right the wrongs, put it better in your next fight, perform a lot better, because he can do that, I believe.
Joseph Parker was ringside. Let's listen to what he had to say about the fight.
It's silly of me to say, do you want Moses next? Because really, you want Alexander Usyk, don't you?
Yeah, I want Usyk next. I know Usyk's deserves his time to relax and chill with his family. When he's ready, I'll love to open up negotiations and see if we can make the fight happen.
Does that extension clause with the sanctioning body give you more hope that it may well happen?
You just don't know. You just don't know what's going to happen. There's an extension to buy more time on an injury, and hopefully, when he does decide to come back, then we can negotiate, and if we can make it happen, it'll be awesome.
Listen, we love you, and you're all about you, and we want you to be a world champion again, and I think you will be. But just say a final word on what we've witnessed tonight in a 20-year-old who may be the coming force eventually.
Listen, he did a tremendous job. I'm just watching it now. I don't really see it properly, but he, power and precision, picking his shots. Just an explosive display tonight.
Would you like to fight him as well?
Anyone and everyone. I don't care who I fight.
Right, if anyone deserves a world title shot, it's Joseph Parker, isn't it? Usyk talked last week about needing some more time to make a decision due to a back injury. What's going on here? I mean, can't he determine in principle that when I'm fit, I will take the challenge of Joseph Parker rather than need to have a time extension before he makes that decision? What's going on here?
I don't think it's... I think it's more about deciding whether he wants to continue in a boxing ring as opposed to injuries that are preventing that, because he wants to keep hold of that WBO title. And he says, look, I'm undecided what I'm going to do right now. He's in that rest period, and he go, I don't want to let the WBO title go just in case that is the next move. Joseph Parker, if he boxes again, really, the only name that he needs to box to clean up this whole era is Joseph Parker, right? He's undecided what he wants to do in his future.
I think this is the problem with the 4-belt era and the undisputed champions. You'll get one, but you won't keep one. And it's so difficult because all the other governing bodies have their number one challenges. And I'm all for 4 belts. I would have never got a world title fight if it wasn't for 1 belt, if it was only 1 belt. And I understand how it works. And my brother's an interim champion now in the same position where we're waiting for a medical certificate from the light heavyweight champion to determine whether he's injured or the injury is going to be keeping him out for long enough. But I think Alexander Usyk will just want to switch off from... I don't want an opponent lined up yet. Just let me have a rest. Let me enjoy what I've done. He's earned the right. He's definitely earned the right.
Of course. What's the consensus? Do we think that... I mean, you're talking about potentially Usyk retiring. I mean, what's the consensus of opinion? Do you think he retires? Do you think he fights again? Do you think he fights Parker? What do you think happens here?
It's a very difficult call because look, only he's going to know that, but I think that there's potential talks of him and Jake Paul going into an MMA fight, and that's just, I know, but I'm saying purely for money. Yeah. Like, but you just go, like, I think Alexander Usyk will be very undecided himself right now because he's going to be, like you say, when you're in that rest period and you put yourself through those grueling camps all the time, this stage of his career, he's probably kicking back and going, you know what, I need another month or two to decide where I'm at. The end is near, isn't it? That's for sure. If we see him in the ring again, it's going to be once more. I don't think we'll see him in there more than that.
No, I think he'll fight Joseph Parker at some point.
And also, it's money talks. I'm sitting there thinking, walk away from the sport, sail off into the sunset, but if he comes back with £100 million offered to fight someone else, who are we to say don't do it?
The challenge is that the Saudis have made their position pretty clear, haven't they, on the Parker versus Usyk fight, that they don't want to, they don't want to support it. Which means if they don't want to support it, then we're certainly not talking about £100 million fight, are we? And I think we're talking about a far less of a purse, which is far less of an incentive for Alexander Usyk at this stage if it's driven by finances.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I go, like, for the motivation for Usyk is like, you know, where is the money now? Because he's beaten Tyson Fury twice, he's beaten Anthony Joshua twice. So you need another dance partner to generate that sort of money. You're not going to get that. What's he going to get if he boxes Joseph Parker? Because commercially, globally, is that a sellable fight? That's where we're at with it. So you go, like, the money might not be on the table that he wants, and that might be enough for him to walk away. It depends
where he is spiritually as well, doesn't it? I mean, I don't mean this to sound sort of pompous and pious. He writes, I remember him reading the articles that were written about him after the Joshua fight, where he attributes so much of his opportunity for the success and recognition and the financial returns he got to the fight that he fought Anthony Joshua, which Anthony Joshua didn't have to give him and did. And so there's a school of thought which says if he's got that sort of nobility about him and recognisability, then he would give the same opportunity to Joseph Parker, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Am I being a bit idealistic?
Didn't he just do that with Daniel Dubois?
Technically did that with Dubois,
No, but Daniel Dubois was a legitimate world title holder. They were unifying the belts again.
Yeah, I know,
but he'd also beat him relatively easy. Yeah. And that's what I felt. When I seen him say, I will give you that, when Dubois jumped in the ring, and that little bit of, in my opinion, disrespect was there after Usyk had just won. He's going, I'll give you a shot straight away because he's beat him easily. He's vacated the belt.
But he also had something he wanted as well, didn't he?
And then he got that belt back again, which made another record.
I tell you who was saying something interesting, if you think that's what he said, was Tyson Fury. Let's have a listen to what he was saying about Moses Itauma.
I keep getting asked about young Moses Itauma fighting Alexander Usyk and fighting other big names. And my opinion is not someone who don't know boxing. My opinion is someone who has been there and won every single belt, won everything there is to win in boxing, and done very well. Boxing is a young man's game. Like I told Vladimir Klitschko when he was 37, boxing's a young man's game and he waits for nobody. So here's the opinion, you've heard it here first. Moses Itauma will wreck all them old men out of the division. Usyk, AJ, Miller, whoever there is who's old, Zhang, whoever else there is, Luis Ortiz, all these big names of the past are all a spent force. And even the world champion now, if they took my belts and give them to Usyk, Moses will wreck him because he's a young man versus an old man.
I don't know why Luis Ortiz is getting a mention. Isn't he retired? 67. Jarrell Miller. I mean, who's bringing him into the equation?
Yeah.
I mean, what do you make of that? I mean, is it just Tyson being mischievous?
No, I think he's
talking
talking sense.
That way is a bit.
But I think he's talking sense in many ways. You go like that. There is a new era coming, and Moses is that kid, right? And I go, is Alexander Usyk? Hold on. Hear me out.
Everybody else, Zhang, I get all that, but not Usyk.
No, but is Alexander Usyk honestly going to give Moses Itauma a shot? The answer would be no. No, he doesn't have to. No, that's the point.
That's not the point, though, is it? That's not what Tyson's saying. That's not what we're.
Tyson's saying he'd wipe him out. Of course he wouldn't. Of course he wouldn't. But what I'm saying is that fight's never going to materialise. And so you look at that, and so like that's off the table.
But what he's stating the obvious, isn't he? Of course, Moses Itauma beats everybody else.
Yeah.
Because they're all old men, you know. They're all sitting there waiting to get beat now by this young, exciting 20-year-old man who would probably ruin the lot of them. Do you know what I mean?
I still think Usyk beats him personally.
Oh no, Usyk beats him all day long.
At this stage now.
At this stage,
18 months' time.
Yeah, that's
the
different
fight.
You never know.
The next fight, no, I don't think. I think Usyk's got too much.
If he has the more experience on his side, Itauma,
that's it.
Absolutely.
Another 4 or 5 fights down the line, then you're looking at an absolute wrecking ball. Then he would beat everybody put in front of him.
They said
but nobody's going to. Yeah, nobody's going to.
They said Saturday who's going to give him rounds. That's what they were saying. He wanted them out of Whyte.
Nobody beats Usyk right now.
Do you think it's too early for Itauma to fight Parker?
That's a good fight.
It's a good fight.
I think it's a good fight. You know, like you say, like you take Usyk out of this equation, you go like Itauma can mix it with any of them right now. I think he's proven that is because we're talking about the rounds. You go, they are the guys that are going to give him the rounds. That like Catterall, Parker.
Yeah.
There's no one else. Like,
I'd love to see him
I
with
think
Dubois.
Big Miller or...
Dubois is another great name.
Dubois.
I think
fight.
Big Miller or
That's a
Andy
fight,
Ruiz
yeah.
would definitely give him rounds as well.
Yeah.
Do we think, to close this section off, do we think that we see Moses Itauma as a world champion in 2026?
100%.
Yeah. As soon as those belts become fragmented, he's gonna pick one of them up for sure.
Depends on Usyk, I think. If he gives them up, then definitely we'll see a champion.
Fantastic. At the other end of the weight scale, we saw Nick Ball defend his WBA title against what I thought was a very impressive Sam Goodman. Far more impressive than I thought he was going to be. In fact, far more enjoyable to watch than I anticipated. What did you guys make of that fight?
Firstly, the scorecards were ridiculous. I mean, we can get into that. 117, 111, 118, 110. I thought that Nick Ball done enough to win the fight. It was one of those fights for Nick Ball that he was struggling to get going right from the opening bell. And we saw against TJ Donaghy last time out, he could make those adjustments and adapt and turn the fight around, you know, in the second half of the contest. Here he was really struggling. You know, everything that he was doing, Goodman was answering to. And I think he was sort of maybe a little surprised by just how good Sam Goodman was, because I think we were all guilty of underestimating Goodman. We thought he was going to be walking forward, you know, high output, you know, throwing lots of shots, but there was not much more to his game. But he delivered there, and he made it very difficult.
You felt Sam Goodman was one-dimensional.
Absolutely.
If anybody looked slightly one-dimensional in that fight, I thought it was Nick Ball.
100%.
He seems to run out of ideas a little bit.
Yeah, that's my point.
I'm not so sure that's because he's quite small in stature, but he seemed to be lunging in quite a lot, leaping at shots, and getting countered. Now, but was he 5'4"? You know, featherweight. He's not the biggest featherweight in the world. And
I think Goodman showed that he had much more to his game. You know, he actually gave me a little bit of a bollocking earlier on in the week out there when I interviewed him. He said, "Listen, I watched the interview. You said I'm one-dimensional and there's not a lot to my game, and I'm going to prove you otherwise. There's much more to my game."
And
he did deliver. That's what I'm saying.
You know what I felt on the night? A lot of fighters, Mike Tyson included, especially, you know, Nick Ball fighting a similar stature and build and size. When people meet them head on, they tend to struggle. I felt Nick had a bit of an off night on Saturday. I thought he won the fight well. I thought the cards were a little bit wide, but I did think he won the fight. I didn't think it was too close.
I think Nick Ball is a brilliant fighter, and I'm thoroughly pleased with the fact that he's got a world title. He's now defended it 3 times. For whatever reason, I asked Frank, why isn't he fighting the other champions? Frank is adamant that they won't get in the ring with him. It's them and their demands or their reluctance to fight Nick Ball is the reasons why he can't get unification. So it looks like it's going to be in that space. I can't see Parsanui, can you? No. I can't see Nick Ball having a happy outcome against
not on that performance.
I spoke to Frank about this as well, like trying to make those unification bouts when certain fighters are outpricing themselves. It doesn't you know, mathematically it doesn't add up.
Sometimes a performance like that opens the door to them champions saying yes, because they'll see that and they'll think, fancy it now.
Yeah. I think that's the fight that they're chasing.
They see him blowing people out, they might not fancy it. They might just think, well, we'll leave that one until the money's right. But now that might open the door. It might be a bit of a blessing in disguise for Nick Ball to get these big fights.
What do you make of the news that Daniel Dubois is changing management and bringing Sam Jones. Sorry, Sam. What do you make of that news? What do you think that adds? What do you think the thinking is behind that?
That news is true, that Sam's taken over management. Also that Don Charles is no longer part of that team.
Yeah, I feared for that, didn't you?
Yeah, that is true as well. And I think that Don's going to release a statement in due time. Kieran Farrell, obviously, out of there as well. So Sam's going to change his whole team up. Where he goes, Tony Sims is rumoured to be that trainer. Right. So that, you know, that might work. But I think it's just about trying to freshen things up, you know, and it's going to be interesting to see how that goes.
Boys?
I think Don Charles was good for him, by the way.
So do I.
And I
think Don Charles was the absolute perfect fit for him.
Yeah, I agree.
The oracle for him, didn't he?
Yeah, it's not just Don Charles, is it?
Yeah.
That's what we have to understand.
But he knows the kid inside out. Yeah. He knows how he works. He knows all the mechanics behind that kid and how to motivate and get the best out of him. We've seen it. And to get rid of him now at this point, I think it's a bad move.
I agree with you.
I think anyone that's going to work with Dubois, obviously no secret. I don't know his dad. I've never met his dad, but it's obviously no secret that his dad is a heavily influential person in the camp, in the team. And as long as that relationship is going to be the way it is, as in not just father-son relationship,
challenging.
it's going to be challenging for any trainer that gets involved, or any manager that maybe get involved as well.
I mean, when you look at what Sam brings to the equation, what do you think he brings to the equation? I mean, Sam is a character. He's got lots to say for himself. I mean, this is a step into a different space with, you know, the former heavyweight champion of the world. It's one thing managing certain fighters and looking after Jack Catterall and managing his expectations, and Jack's a great fighter, but you're now going to the former heavyweight champion of the world and Daniel Dubois. I don't think it's unfair to say that Daniel has certain challenges in the way he looks at the world and how he needs to be programmed and pointed in the right direction. What do you think Sam's going to pull together a team that's going to do that?
Well, sometimes, you know, you look at things and you go, well, is that the answer by changing it? You go, Don Charles was the right guy as the trainer, that is for sure. Like, I think that he worked well with Daniel, you know, not just on the physical side, but definitely on the mental side. Sam Jones is a great mouthpiece, you know, so he could be that speaking point. I totally understand that. I understand that relationship because Sam, you know, is good and he can do a lot of Daniel's talking for him. He's well connected, so he can get him a lot of opportunity. But I don't think changing this whole team is going to be particularly good for Daniel Dubois. I get that the family is an influence, but the trainer, who's an integral part of it, should have been really Don Charles. You should have had. They've only just not long been together. They've been together, you know, what is it, 18 months or so? I think that they should. I think that's a bad move.
Yeah, it's a bit of a shock, to be honest with you. I mean, you know, like I say, he's a good coach. You know, Don Charles is a good coach and he knows his stuff. And what, you know, it's not the coach's fault why the fighter's lost. Sure. It's the fighter's fault why the fight was lost.
I've said this in the past, I think, and I don't want to sound like I'm banging on about the same thing constantly. The only person that can help Daniel Dubois is Daniel Dubois. And mentally, I think there's always going to be that frailty there, which we've seen in the past in big fights, in big occasions, in big events. Now, Sam Jones will be very complimentary for Daniel Dubois because what Daniel lacks, Sam more than makes up for. He's got the gift of the gab, he can speak. He's very well connected, as you said, Spencer, and he gets things done for his fighters. He really
but when the
looks
bell
after them.
goes,
But when the bell goes, it's up to Daniel, isn't it? As you say.
Sam Jones steps back and Daniel Dubois has got to take a step forward.
I don't want to be disrespectful to his father, and I know his father wasn't very happy with some of the observations that were coming out after the fight and some of the opinions about what his son was subjected to, parties at his house. And I said to Don to keep his own counsel about certain things and not get involved in anything, and he did. Do you think, in order for Daniel Dubois to advance and to change the direction of travel, where people question certain things about him, Billy Nelson recently has questioned the fact that you can't install heart into people, do you think that there needs to be his father pushed into the background a little bit and allow a trainer to train and to do it in an unfettered way and to do it in a way where he's the pivotal influence? Or is it really the die is cast? It's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
But that's what needs to happen.
Yeah, maybe
that's what needs to happen.
But that's my point, Spence.
Yeah, that's what needs to happen.
If I'm training a fighter, I have to train a fighter. If he's going and doing sessions with his dad and with other coaches, it's not going to be helpful. It's going to be detrimental to the fighter or the programme that we have. And unless the trainer and whatever trainer it is, listen, every trainer in this country deserves respect for what they're doing for fighters to help. And obviously they're employed by the fighter and the fighter ultimately is the boss. But if you're going to a trainer, you're giving up that sort of responsibility and you're making the trainer the boss in the gym. And whatever we do physically and in the gym is up to you.
So what would you do if in some alternate universe where his father came to you and said, I want you to train my son, because we know it starts with his father. What would you do? What would you be saying in that situation?
I've said for a long time, and I mean this in the most respectful ways I possibly can, I think it's beyond saving with him. I think whenever a fight gets hard, we've seen it proven more than once now, he doesn't seem to have that fortitude, that grit, that desire, that mentality of, you're not beating me, I'm going to stick in this and I'm going to outlast you, and that's what.
What do you mean by that?
Needed.
I mean, he dug in deep against Hrgovic, didn't he?
He dug in deep against Hrgovic, but then we saw it in the Joyce fight, it wasn't there. We saw it in the first Usyk fight. I felt he could have got up. In the last fight, I felt he could have got up. As soon as the referee got to 10, he gets up and he walks back to his corner. I'm not beating him with a stick because he's down. I'm not sort of kicking the man when he's down. That's just my observations of what I'm seeing and what I've seen in the past. And I saw it in the Joyce fight. And I said after the Joyce fight, that's in him. That's never going to leave. And that's always going to be the case if a fight gets... That's just my opinion. And
the big problem here, guys, is when he was down on the floor the second time against Usyk last time out, he's looking at his father for instruction. If his father tells him to get up, he gets up. So this all goes back round to his dad, doesn't it? And you go like, for this kid to improve and grow as a human being, he's got to cut his dad out of this whole boxing thing because his dad is too controlling. And when the kid's getting into a situation where he's on the floor and you're looking at your dad, not your trainer, for instruction to get up or not to get up, but then we've got a big problem, Duke. That's the problem. And I think that if that continues,
it's also a tough one because look at his dad. His dad's sitting there saying, well, look at the job I've done for my children. There's one world champion, there's another world champion. There's my youngest son coming through, who's a very talented boxer, by the way, young Solomon. I've seen him live in boxing. The dad can sit and say, I've done great by my kids and I've raised them really well, and no one can argue with him. But obviously, when we're talking about dynamics and relationships, I've never seen it, I've never met the man. I'm not involved, so I don't know what goes on. But if it's becoming a bit detrimental to what's going on with the fight, with the trainer relationship, the manager relationship, then maybe they all need to have a discussion themselves. But for me, I think it's mentally...
But Don comes out of this, irrespective of the fact he's no longer coaching Daniel Dubois, he'll come out with his reputation enhanced now, won't he? So it will be... I know there were certain peculiarities about the relationship which are different from other training relationships, whether it be the remuneration or the employee level that Don worked on, whether it be the overriding influence of the father. Don will come out with a better currency as a result of the experiences he's had with Daniel Dubois, which means he'll go again in another direction, won't he?
I think he improved Daniel as a fighter and as a human being as well. You know, he worked a lot with Daniel. Daniel started speaking more. He's started becoming a little bit more media friendly. That was all down to Don Charles. So I think that Don's done his job. You know, OK, the job might be over now for him, but he enhances as a trainer for sure.
When do you think we'll see Daniel back out again, and who do you think it's likely to be against, or who would you think is a good candidate for him to fight next?
Moses Itauma.
No, I think we see.
That's what I quite like.
I think we see Daniel this year. I think we see him around sort of December time this year, and it could be him with, you know, it could be him with anyone. It could be like a Joseph Parker type or something like that, or somewhere thereabouts. Depends what happens with so many moving parts at the moment. With especially Turkey not wanting, let's say Turkey doesn't want Moses Itauma versus Joseph Parker, and he puts some money down for that fight to happen somewhere else. Let's say we get Itauma versus Filip Hrgovic, who's number one, number two, and Joseph Parker then takes another route, and it could be that Daniel Dubois fight.
Who do you boys think you should fight?
I'd take a complete step back, especially if you're revamping the whole team. Management, trainer, it's a big change. Just changing your trainer is a massive change, or your manager. To do both after a loss on such a big stage, I would take a complete step back. I'd fight someone lower down in the rankings just to get your eye back in, just to get back on the horse, so to speak, and then have a look in the new year at where you're going to go. But I'd try and get him out December time.
I mean, he's, you know, like I say, it's huge to get rid of Don Charles because, like I say, Daniel Dubois has never been the most confident guy in the world, and I think Don Charles has been the backbone of that boy, and has been the making of that boy. So now he hasn't got him in his corner. I don't really know. It's a question of wait and see now, isn't it?
Well, it's going to be fascinating, isn't it, to see how Sam beds in, because Sam's got lots to say for himself. He's quite ebullient, and he's going to, with that kind of personality, he must have taken the role with some degree of latitude, and that will be quite interesting to see how that plays out, because Sam being Sam will probably push the envelope, and that will see where it lands with the father, because it might land in a space that's like either conflicts the father, or actually he accepts that a new direction has to be taken for the benefit of his son, and maybe we'll see some changes.
Do you think his father would accept?
No.
Because I personally don't, and I think that may be a big problem, because if Sam tries to dig his heels in and say, right, this needs to change, and the father says no, we've got a problem, haven't we?
Well, it'll be fascinating to watch, that's for sure. Right, that's it for episode 134 of Talk Boxing. Thanks, Spence. Thanks, Duke. Thanks, Paul. And we'll see you guys next week.